Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Torah with your host, right there, Rabbi Anibal. Very happy to be here with all of you, ready to study Torah. And welcome, Shelly. Welcome, Judy. Welcome, Brenda. Great to see your names here on screen. David Grossman as well. Welcome to the class, David. Very nice. Very nice. So here we are, ready to start another Torah L'chaim with all of you. Amparo Goldman, welcome to the class. Welcome. We are going to start. We are going to study Parsha Vaera, and this is when the plagues will take place, and you can already feel the Exodus is coming soon, right? Once God start rolling things, and one thing's bringing another, and that's gonna happen. Welcome, Randy. Welcome, Jerome. Welcome to the class, guys. That's great. So yeah, Parsha Vaera. We are going to learn more about Moses. Oh, thank you, Brenda. I'm also looking forward always to the Thursday meeting with all of you. And I'm teaching quite a lot in these days. I'm teaching now on Thursdays. I'm teaching on Wednesday evening the basic Judaism course that is in person and online at the same time, which is interesting. And then on Sundays, I'm teaching Choosing Judaism, also known as conversion classes, but we don't call it that anymore because not everybody there is for conversion. There are people taking the course for different reasons. So, and I also have my bar mitzvah students and my choirs. It's great. It's great. It's a great life like this. So thank you to all of you for supporting everything we do here at the synagogue. And we are very blessed with everybody that supports Congregation Shaare Zedek. So we can do what we like and at the same time bring all this to the community. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win. So we are going to wait a couple more minutes to formally start with the class. And as for the Wednesday class that I was mentioning, that is Wednesday evenings. What time is it? At 7 p.m. Central Time. I already taught 2 classes, but you're still on time to join for the rest of the cycle. It's all free. All you have to do is to register here at the office. I sponsor but end job organization, and it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. 5 sessions, 5 very important topics. Judaism. That is that we are teaching here at the Shaare Zedek. So it's all very good. Let's see. Who else is going to be here? Probably to begin is if there is anybody else there, please say hello so we can start in a minute or so. Meanwhile, as always, what do I have? My espresso. That is some fuel here. Now, actually, I really like coffee. Actually, really like coffee. It's beyond the kick or whatever. So yeah. So I'm gonna bring the class. We should start moving. And just a quick reminder: if you haven't subscribed to our channels, okay, if this is the first time or it's not the first time, but you never subscribe to our channels, this is the time. This is the opportunity for you to hit the subscribe. Either if you're on Facebook or on YouTube, there is always a way to do it, right? On Facebook, I think you have to like or to follow Congregation Shari Sedek, and you will be notified. And on YouTube, you have to subscribe. And then once you subscribe, you can because YouTube and Facebook, they change things all the time. So on YouTube, you can subscribe, but it's not enough. Then you have to go to the little bell and to click there to be notified for everything we do. So you'll always will always be notified of everything. Okay. So yeah. Now, this is the first text that I wanted to share with all of you as we go deeper into the life of Moses. And we studied last week about Moses, the one who had no issues to intervene whenever there was an injustice. Right? Remember what happened, that he intervenes when an Egyptian is beating a Hebrew, and he also intervened when a Hebrew was beating another Hebrew, and he also intervened when there were two non-Jewish groups that they were fighting with each other, because Moses was a doer, right, man of action, and with a deep understanding of justice, and he couldn't tolerate injustice, so while he intervened. But we are also going to learn about Moses the theologian. Let's put it that way. Moses, the one who at the same time developed a strong and unique, according to the rabbis, unique relationship with God, like nobody else did. In fact, the Torah itself will say that there was nobody like Moses who was able to speak with God face to face. That means that this is very interesting. And Maimonides is the one who points this out. And he said, if the Torah says that Moses is the only one who spoke to God face to face, so what happened with every other person in the Torah that we learn that they spoke with God? And then Maimonides will say that they didn't speak face to face, that God always communicated to them through visions or dreams. Even though he said God spoke to the prophet so and so, or even to Abraham or Jacob or to Isaac, right? It was never a voice. Never a voice. The only one, according to the Torah, who heard the voice of God, or heard a voice, and that was representing God's will, was Moses. Okay? Just so you can understand the depth of Moses' connection with God. And you will see one of the things that also distinguishes or separates Moses from the others is certain aspects of understanding God. For example, let me read here. We are in the book of Exodus chapter 6, verses 2 to 3. And it says, God spoke to Moses. Okay? And he said to him, so God said to Moses, I am Adonai. And of course, I'm saying Adonai because we don't know how to pronounce that spelling of the name of God, which is in Hebrew, Yud Hey Vav Hey. In English, it's usually spelled either YHVH or sometimes JHVH. Some people call it Jehovah, I guess, to try to pronounce it somehow. But because we don't know the correct pronunciation, we don't want to mess it up. So we say Adonai every time that the spelling is Yud Hey Vav Hey. Okay? So you would see there in the first verse, if you read Hebrew, it says Vaidaber Elohim, one of the names of God. Vaidaber Elohim al Moshe, Vayomer elav ani Adonai. And this is very important. Why? Okay, why? Because God is going to say now, I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as El Shaddai. El Shaddai. Although I did not make myself known to them by their name, Yud Hey Vav Hey, Adonai. Okay? Which is interesting because it seems like this is not true, and we are going to see in a minute. But right out of the bat, we have three different names for the same God. And this is interesting because sometimes it's a criticism that we have different names because they represent different gods. It's a criticism to some of the Jewish theology. But here in the Torah, will make it very clear that we are talking about the same God that, for strategic reasons, decides to use different names. Why is that? Well, later on, we are going to come to learn that whenever the Torah uses different names of God, is telling us something different about God. So it's almost like a presentation card for some of the attributes of God. So when the name Elohim is being used, then we know that God is going to manifest in certain ways. And if the name is Adonai, it's going to be a different way of interacting. Okay? And so on and so forth when it says El Shaddai and so many and some others that we have. We have Adonai Tsevaot, and we have what are the names we have from God here? We have sometimes we use the name Shekhinah, we use Hamakom, Harachaman, Avinu Sheva Shamayim. We have many different names that we use, and every time we use a different names, we are referring to different aspects of God. We are not talking about different gods. Okay? And this is something very important for us to understand. So right out of the bat, it says here that for some reason, right, even before we go into the commentaries of the rabbis, you can see that Moses is going to learn something new about God that not even our forefathers knew. They didn't discover that about God. I guess their relationship with God wasn't as deep as the relationship that Moses had with God. So let's continue. Shelley, you said many aspects. Yeah, many aspects. Many aspects. It's you see, before even we go to the next one, let me give you a few examples, right? In this day and age, when we have an expression that is said that a person that has many hats. Have you ever heard that? Am I saying correctly? Yeah. When I say a person with different hats, right? Could be a parent, could be a teacher, and could be a volunteer. So different. It's the same person. But when I say they have different hats, it's the different aspects of the life of a person. So let's have that in mind when we read the next text. So now Rabbi Yaakov Menken will say, pay attention to this. The four-letter name of God, Yahweh or Yud Hey Vav Hey or Adonai, right, appears many times throughout the book of Genesis. So the rabbi said, hey, come on, God used that name before. Rashi, Rabbi Shlomo Yitzchaki, explains, well, the verse does not say lo hodati, meaning I did not tell them, but rather lo nodati, I was not known to them. Obviously, our forefathers knew God's names. But as Rashi continues, they were never given the opportunity to recognize God's full nature. In what regard? They could not see how reliable and truthful God is, because they never saw God fulfill the promises God made to them concerning their descendants. Okay? So here the Torah is saying that doesn't matter how deep your relationship is with God, it's not the same for you to trust that something is going to happen in the future, that being the one witnessing the promises to be a reality. And that's the difference between Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Moses. In what sense? Well, for Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, God promised them that they're going to be a nation. It's not going to happen until they leave Egypt and they become a nation. Okay? Moses was the one who was able to bring them all together as the nation of Israel. Then next, also God said they are going to be enslaved and they are going to be liberated. Well, that didn't happen during Abraham's lifetime. So um, so basically Moses is the one who is going to experience the fruition of that promise from God. So when you witness the realization of the reality of God's promise, when it happens to you, you gain a deeper understanding of God. And that is something that Moses had the privilege to experience during his lifetime. So it was very interesting. Okay? And it's interesting that it's related to the name Adonai. So how is the name Adonai related to the God who promised something specifically for the people of Israel? Right? And what is the difference between Adonai and Elohim? What is the aspect of one and the aspect of the other? Right? Well, let me explain. The Ibn Ezra and the Ramban with an N, that is Nachmanides, maintain that El Shaddai refers to the powerful God of creation and nature who revealed himself to the patriarchs without changing the natural order of the universe. So El or Elohim or El Shaddai is talking about the God as a creator. Okay? The one who creates the world, who creates nature. And once you create nature, nature takes its course. The things continue being natural. Okay? So whenever we see that kind of God as a creator, we use Elohim, but in this case also El Shaddai. Okay? Now, Yud Hey Vav Hey, Adonai, changed the natural order of the universe in the plagues and the splitting of the Red Sea in order to free the Israelites from Egyptian servitude. So, without going too much into detail here, this is all big part of Kabbalah as well, of Jewish mysticism. In a nutshell, Elohim represents the God of nature, or God in heaven, to put it in, if you want to make an image of what we are talking about here, while Adonai is a personal God, the one who is close to us, the one who makes a miracle for us. So that's why we always have these two names, and we use one or the other, depends on the context of what we are reading. So the entire Torah could be read and understood that way when we have these two aspects of God: the distant God and the close God. I hope you understand this. So, in other words, Moses was the first one who fully, or not fully, the one who understood the most the way God interacts with us in a personal level, or the way God interacts on a personal level with the people of Israel, guiding every step of the way. Not setting just things in motion and then it takes the natural way. You understand? That is basically the difference between the Elohim and the Adonai that we read here. Okay. Now, more about this. Listen to this. The God of Genesis is El Shaddai, the almighty power, and the sum total of all the powers of the universe, Elohim. He created the cosmos before there was any human being on earth. He effectuated the Big Bang. He sets limits to every earthly creation, and he did it all by himself. He is the God who revealed himself to Abraham and his family and established with them a covenant and mission to perfect the world. The God of Exodus, okay, is Adonai. Literally, he will effectuate and bring about redemption in history through the partnership, okay, of Israel and the nations of the world. El Shaddai is the God of creation and being. Adonai is the God of history and becoming. Center stage in Genesis is God alone. Center stage in Exodus is God and Israel. So the partnership is more evident. So again, there was a partnership between God and Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's why the name Adonai is still there. But according to the rabbis, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they didn't fully understood and comprehended that concept. Not that didn't happen until Moses. That's what it says, that the full extent of the name Adonai was not known to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay, so again, center stage in Exodus is God and Israel as we march the long, torturous, but guaranteed march to redemption. So that's why, for example, in our prayers, we pray to both. We use both names. You see, when they say Baruch atah Adonai, blessed are you, Adonai. Okay? The personal God. Eloheinu melech haolam. Elohim, God of creation, is the king up there. Right? So then you can understand better why we use different names to quickly understand different aspects of God. Do we really need different names? Probably not. But this is just a shortcut for us to quickly understand different aspects of God in every different context that we may be. And that's why we have these different names. But it's interesting that I said that the full extent was not understood until Moses. And then you may ask, well, what happened after Moses? Well, we already have, the Torah was already revealed now in its totality. So we have what it takes to understand the name of God as well. We have the Torah and the words of the rabbis to help us achieve just that. Any comments? All of a sudden, the chat went very quiet. So I always like to know what you guys think about this and give me your opinions. Okay? Every opinion is valid here. Now, let's go to another text. Okay? Let's go to another text. And this is more, we're going to start using a little logic here. Because the rabbis are a little, the rabbis also, they try to use logic to try to understand the order of the words here. Listen to this. Moses said this to the people of Israel. So what is this? That, they're going to be free. They're going to be liberated. They're going to go serve God. But they wouldn't listen to him because they were so discouraged and their slavery was so cruel. Something very interesting here out of the way, that Moses came to them with the good news, right? The good news. You are not going to be slaves forever. Redemption is coming. Very uplifting words. But they didn't listen. They didn't listen to Moses. Now, the Torah doesn't say that they didn't listen because they didn't believe in God, right? Or because they didn't like Moses. No. They didn't listen because of the external circumstances, and they were overwhelmed by it. And sometimes it happened to us many times that, we have too many problems in our lives, too many issues, too many challenges, and we have people that they have a good heart and they come to us and say, oh, come on, cheer up, everything is going to get better. And we don't listen, not because we don't believe, not because we don't think that the other person has good intentions. It's because we have so much in our minds that it's very difficult for us to listen and to internalize that the person is coming with words of blessing. So for the people of Israel, it's interesting. And I think I'm happy that the Torah mentions specifically why they didn't listen. Wasn't because they were bad people. Wasn't because they weren't believers. It was because they had too much on their plate. Jerome, what do you say, Jerome? Let's see. Their whole life was predicated by being slaves, so they couldn't comprehend a different life. Yeah, sometimes, and of course, we should never let external circumstances to tell us what to do. Okay? But that's not reality. That's not reality. Hello, Hassan Litvak. Welcome. Bienvenido. Hassan Mexicano. Welcome, Mari. So that's why I said I'm glad that the Torah is not saying they didn't listen because they were bad people. They didn't listen because they didn't believe in God. They didn't listen because they had too much. It's almost like the Torah is trying to excuse them. They said, when you are trying to go and cheer up somebody who has too much, if they are not, if they don't have the reaction that you were expecting, don't put it on them. Try to empathize and understand what they're going through. Okay? So, now, you see the Ramban, the Nachmanides will explain. It said, because they were so discouraged and their slavery was so cruel, not because they didn't believe in God and His prophecy, but they just couldn't pay attention to His words because of the pressure from the hard work. Okay? It's so yeah, we have to understand. And sometimes when we want to bring words of encouragement of another person that they're going through a lot, maybe it's not just words that they need. They need us to go a little further into our help. Maybe they need some physical help from us, not just words of encouragement. And this is something that, believe me, Moses will understand fairly quickly of what was going on here, because Moses had a different reality. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that he had an easy life, but he already went through these difficulties, and he already had part of that journey figured out, right? And he was one who worked hard, so the external circumstances won't affect his thinking. But don't expect that everybody will think like you, because not everybody is at the same stage of their mental and spiritual journey. So we have to understand. Now, and this is why it's so difficult for us to understand when we are going through so much suffering, okay? Even if you're a believer, even if you believe in God, even if you believe that everything is for a purpose, even if you somehow you can say the words, and I know sometimes it's difficult, I know, God, that, things are not happening to me, they are happening for me. Yeah, it sounds good, it sounds beautiful, but it's difficult to comprehend that. So, see, let's read this comment. It is difficult for us to recognize that hand of God in painful events. Some people will say you're going through so much, they will tell you, yeah, you have to be able to see the hand of God in your suffering. Don't expect the person to be happy about those words, right? There is a moment for everything. So you have to be very careful when we say something shocking like that. Even if you believe that that's the case, the other person may not be ready to absorb those words. Okay? Now, as Rabbi Zeb Leff points out, this is a result of our own limited perspective. The Talmud asks, how can the prophet write, on that day God will be one and his name one? This is part of the Leinu. Vayoma hu Adonai echad shmo echad. Are God and His name not one right now? What do you mean in the future? God is now, right now. We say with the Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad, every single day. It's not that God is going to be one in the future. God is one now. So why would the prophet and then the rabbis added it to the Aleinu? Why would it say on that day, in the future, God will be one and His name one? Well, the answer is that in reality, everything that God does is good. But in our current circumstances, we are unable to recognize this. We distinguish between the blessing, Hatov vehametiv, who is good and does good, that we say upon receiving good news, versus the blessing that we say upon bad news. Baruch Dayana Emet, blessed be the true judge. This is, for example, what we say at a funeral, or the mourners say in the funeral. Okay? In the world to come, in the Messianic era, we will recognize that these two, Hatovum Ametiv, who is good and does good, and the true judge, okay? But when the coming of the Messiah, or in the other world after we passed away, we will recognize that these are one and the same. We will see God's mercy in every event. But today, we are not in the Messianic world. We are not in the Olam Haba. We are right here, right now, in a very difficult and sometimes painful material earth. Okay? In the material world. Today, we do not pronounce the four-letter name of God, which indicates His transcendence of time and His mercy. Then we will. What I mean is that, when we say the quote-unquote blessing, Hatov vehametiv, we said Baruch Hatov vehametiv. Blessed be the one who is good and does good. And in the funeral, we don't say Baruch Ata Adonai, right? Dayan Emet, we say Baruch Dayan Emet. Blessed be the true judge. We don't say the name of God. Why is that? That in those cases we don't do it? Because right now we cannot see that those two things are one and the same. Okay? So we don't pronounce the name of God until we fully comprehend that concept. It's very interesting. Very, very interesting. Even in the funeral, right? We don't make the mourners bless the name of God. Because many people don't understand what is there to bless. They just lost a loved one. So even the rabbi may understand that, but the people are going through a loss. So we don't make them say the name of God. Say the name of God of Adonai, which is the one that it will imply that there is a purpose for everything, and there is there is a reason why the person died and so forth. They are not in a condition to intellectualize that at that time, so that's why we don't ask them to recite it. Now, this is it. I wanted to share with you this story that is kind of goes there. Okay? Now, listen to this story. The Chafetz Chaim, Rabbi Israel Meir Kagan, who was once sitting with his family and friends, and he spoke about the terrible situation in the Jewish community of his day. People had truly lost their faith in God and were moving away from religion. Rav Naftali was the Rosh Mesivta high school principal in the yeshiva in Rodin, and he was one of those listening. He responded, "Why is this a great surprise? Even in Egypt, when the Jews still remember their forefathers and also knew that the exile would only last 400 years, they were nonetheless so disheartened by the sheer amount of work placed upon them that they lost hope. In our current situation, our forefathers are long forgotten, and our exile is apparently endless. Why should we be surprised then if we see people losing their faith?" The Chafetz Chaim considered this and realized that he was right. You're a good defender for Israel, he said. Your words should ascend before the holy throne. So, in other words, what this rabbi is saying is, when somebody goes through a lot and you see the person losing hope and abandoning their faith, uh, it should be understood. Okay? It should be understood. And that's why this is this is something that sometimes we don't understand the situation with this view. And so what we do is we understand, we empathize with the people, and we try to connect with them in a different way, not by judging what they are doing, but trying to add encouragement to the life. Any comments so far? I always like to stop once in a while to give you a chance to catch up and to type whatever you have to say. Okay, let's continue here. Let's go to the next text that I wanted to study with you. Okay? Listen to the thing here. Moses said to God, "Behold, the children of Israel have not listened to me. How will Pharaoh listen to me? Oh, and on top of that, remember, I have sealed lips," right? It means, and on top of everything, I have a speech impediment. Now, this is interesting because how can Moses compare one situation with the other, right? How are the two connected? The fact that the children of Israel didn't listen to Moses. So, because we just said that, why didn't the people of Israel listen to Moses? Why? Because of all the work, all the heavy work that they were slaves, they were suffering. All they knew was misery for the last few years, right? And that's why they didn't listen to Moses. Okay? The Torah just said that was the rationale. The Pharaoh is not suffering. He's very comfortable in a palace. How can Moses equate one with the other? Think about that. Think about that for a minute. Shelley Chochin is empathy, right? Randy, you said that funerals, the Kaddish is different from normal. Never knew why before. Well, not always. Yeah, I think I know where you're going. There is one Kaddish that that we don't use it here in Winnipeg. I used to do it back in Argentina. There is an Orthodox cemetery, and there is a Kaddish. I think it's called Kaddish Hagadol. I think that's how they call it, Hagadol. That is recited only at the time of the funeral, and it does mention death and I think it's mentioning the resurrection. Oh, I wish I would have the book here. I have it in my car. The funeral book that contains that Kaddish. But yes, there is a special Kaddish that is recited sometimes in some congregations only at the time of the funeral. And I think they also sometimes they call it by the Achaya Metaya, the Kaddish in Aramaic, because that is the phrase. And it's way longer than the other, way longer. Good point. Good point, Randy. It's a different one. Yeah. Okay. So let's go back here and remember, again, if you're new to the class, it's the first time you catch it, remember to subscribe to all the channels and remember to give us the thumbs up. Of course, that is always good. When I finish, see all the thumbs up, that means that you like the class. Okay? So let's see why Moses said this after God just made it clear that the reason why the children of Israel didn't listen was because of all the hard work that they had. Right? Rashi will start thinking about that. Rashi will say, this is one of the 10 Kal Vachomer. Kal Vachomer is one of the methods for the rabbis to study scripture, okay, to understand what the Torah is trying to say. Uh, in English, we call Kal Vachomer a fortiori. Okay, that means, for example, if a weightlifter cannot lift the stone, surely a child cannot either, right? If the professional cannot do it, a little child, of course, cannot. So when you're in that situation and you apply that logic to understand the verse, you say that you're applying the Kal Vachomer method to understand. Okay, so back to Rashi. This is one of the 10 Kal Vachomer arguments we find in the Torah. Rashi counts 10 situations that we learn halacha using Kal Vachomer, or we understand the situation using Kal Vachomer. Really, Rashi, really. And I put this, the next one I highlighted because it's interesting. It said, but this logic is questionable. The Torah says that the reason that the Israelites did not listen to Moses was because they were so discouraged and their slavery was so cruel. Inasmuch as Pharaoh was not a victim of such oppression, perhaps he might listen. So why would Rashi use Kal Vachomer here? Any guess before I go to the next slide? You're going to take it a second to think why was Moses' logic here? No takers yet? No takers? Okay. I'll go to the next slide and we'll try to understand what was Moses' rationale here and why Rashi said what he said at this point. Moses knew that Jews inherently believe. Okay? So, again, we always believe, but then life is changing the way we think and the way we believe. Okay? But naturally, from the start, we all believe the same. We just let external circumstances to change us. Okay? However, the suffering of hard work and the evil treatment of the Egyptians must have tainted their faith. But hard work alone does not taint faith. It is only when it is exasperated by the torment of the taskmaster and their cruel taunts. Okay? How much more so, he figured, would Pharaoh be inattentive of the command that Hashem is in charge and the Jews should be let free? If hard work stains the thought process, blocking the beauty of Hashem's word to filter through, how much more so does the idolatry and heresy of Pharaoh impede them from penetrating? So basically what Moses is doing there, this is brilliant. He's saying, okay, so let's make a list of things that are actually blocking our connection with God, things that they're blocking our faith in God, okay? Things that they are not allowing us to understand that God is in control, okay? Very interesting. Make a list of things. So first, and it's just part of it, is all the cruel things that happen to you. Okay? So it's interesting. I love this. And Moses said, come on, hard work by itself, that's nothing. In fact, we know many people that they are hard workers. They work all day, but they believe in God. But I said, the problem is when bad things are happening to you. And they hurt. And they're terrible. That is a real one. Okay? That is part of the list. The other one is living your life following like idolatrous system, let's put it away, or even worse in this case, being Pharaoh, being the one who believed he was a god. right? So what Moses is saying here is, look, if the people of Israel, because of all the suffering, they didn't listen that there is a God, right? And that is entry level. It's even worse when there is a person who believes he is God. Do you think that person is going to listen? And that's why we talk about Kalva Homer. I said, if a person who went through a lot stopped believing in God, even more so somebody who believes he is God. That's why Moses spoke the way he spoke. Let's continue with this. Impede them from penetrating. We look at Hashem's creation, right? We all do. We go to synagogue. We hear musar, words of inspiration and all that. We read the prophets, but somehow it does not get through. The words are beautiful. Those who hear them can be inspired, but so many impediments block our vision and our hearing. Remember the list? What are the list? Suffering, or our lifestyles, our desires, our work, okay? Or like Pharaoh, believing that you are God, in the sense that you are the only one creating your reality and God has nothing to do with it. So if you reach a level where you believe that's the way it is, those are the things that they are blocking you for achieving a higher spiritual connection with God. Okay? Now, if we open our eyes, we should see how much holiness is there. But it's a journey. It doesn't happen overnight. And that's why it's important to establish a relationship with God when things are, so to speak, going our way, when we feel the blessing in our lives. Because Moses made it very clear, it's not going to happen when you're going through challenging times. Or it's very difficult for it to happen unless you really have a revelation or an epiphany or something that it would allow you to comprehend this principle. Moses was the one who, during his time away, when things weren't great but they weren't terrible, figured many of these things. So when he came back to Egypt and started to suffer all these setbacks and things, he was ready to stay strong in his faith. Okay, but without the preparation that he did during the good years, probably that would never have happened. Okay, so I don't think it's because Moses was Moses. We all have it, as it says here. We all start our lives believing. Then we allow circumstances to make us stop believing. So when we are going through moments that we believe a little bit, that's when we have to use that opportunity to strengthen our relationship with God. Let's continue. Now, we have this text from Malachi that is very interesting, and I cannot read it. I will move it here. Let's see. Hold on a minute. The prophetic burden. The thing is not allowing me to read it. But I think you can read it there, right? The prophetic burdens. I can start reading from the second line. Sorry. I love you, said God, and you said, how are you loved us? God answered, was not Esau a brother to Jacob? Yet I love Jacob, but I despise Esau. It's from the book of Malachi, by the way, from the prophet. Now, this is interesting. The question that we learn here: in what way was this prophecy a burden? Can you see, honestly, can you see any burden on anything weird there? No. It's such an uplifting statement. It's not a burden, that prophecy, to go say, I love you the way I love Jacob and I despise Esau. And a prophecy that expresses God's love for Israel is hardly a burden. But there are two ways a father can love his son. One way is that the son has earned the father's love. He is gentle, considerate, studious and courteous. It is also possible that the son is none of these, and he really not earned love. However, he has a brother who is an absolute scoundrel. And compared to his renegade brother, he's a tzaddik. So he's not really a good person, but compared to the evil brother, yeah, sure. So the father loves him because by comparison to his brother, who causes the father much more grief, he is so much better. Malachi conveyed the word of God. I love Jacob because he's a brother to Esau, whom I despise because he is a rogue. Compared to Esau, Jacob is a tzaddik. The prophet said, if God cannot find anything more laudable to say about the Israelites, other than that they are not as bad as the pagans, then this is indeed a burdensome prophecy for me. We should merit God's love because we earned it. Moses was an advocate to the Israelites. He had come to them with the joyous message of deliverance, that God will liberate them from their cruel enslavement. Yet, they turned a deaf ear to him. Moses pleaded for them. They rejected me because they were oppressed, because they were so discouraged and their slavery was so cruel. However, I know that when I come to Pharaoh, he will reject me even though he lives in leisure, in a palace. Therefore, the Israelites are not as bad as Pharaoh. Then Moses added, if I have nothing more favorable to say about the Israelites, other than they are better than Pharaoh, then I have sealed lips. I am without words. This is hardly what I wish to say about my people. So this is very interesting. So Moses is not saying I have a speech impediment. It is, if all I have to say is that they are a little bit better than Pharaoh, then I have nothing to say. My lips are sealed. If I cannot say something positive, truly positive, I won't say anything. So, we should seek to improve ourselves spiritually, living in an environment which is so immoral and corrupt. We may tend to think that because we are not as decadent as our neighbor, that is adequate spiritually. This is a mistake. We must strive to be virtuous on our own, rather than being satisfied because we may be better than the wicked. We should constantly seek to advance ourselves spiritually. And this reminds me to the story of Noah and the way we compare Noah with Abraham, right? When at the beginning of the book of Genesis, it said that Noah, he was a tzaddik, but it says he was a tzaddik in his generation. And some rabbis understand, say he was a tzaddik in his generation. Compared to the people around him, he was a tzaddik. Why? Well, look at what happened. What God said to Noah, I'm going to destroy the world with a flood. So build an ark that I will save you. Noah never said, well, God, hold on. How do you know that they are not good people? Maybe not in my neighborhood, but somewhere else. Hey, God, I don't know everybody living in the area. Maybe there are some good people there. Are you going to destroy the entire world? Noah never said that. Well, Abraham did. When God said to Abraham, I'm going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. And Abraham said to God, whoa, what are you talking about? What if there are righteous people living there? Because again, Abraham didn't know everybody living in Sodom and Gomorrah. He probably heard that there were bad people, wicked people, evil people, but it doesn't mean that there were not good people living there. So for Noah, sometimes we don't read it that way, but for Noah, what the Torah says, he was a tzaddik compared to others. Okay? But Moses said, Come on, God. We can do better. We can find more great things to say about the Jewish people, other than that they are a little bit better than Pharaoh. Okay. As for us, we are the one who have to strive to be that person. A person that, we are not just a little bit better than others, and you will say, hey, I'm not a religious person, but at least I come to synagogue every Saturday. At least I study Torah once a week with Rabbi Mas, right? Which is great that you study Torah, you go to synagogue, but we have to always aim to give more. Never to be good by comparison. We should be great by our own merits, because we keep increasing what we do and what we give to others. Okay? So, yeah. Okay, so that's what I wanted to teach to you today. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. And remember, thumbs up always. And if you haven't, subscribe to the channel. Okay? And so you will be notified every time we go live, or every time we have a class or something good that we are doing in the internet. You want to do that. And also, if you missed any part of the class, remember it's going to be rebroadcasted tonight at 8 p.m. Central Time, so you will have a chance to catch it again, or you can go to our YouTube and Facebook channels, and the class will be sitting there, so you can replay it at any time you want. So I hope to see you soon, or at least next week, for the next Torah L'Chaim. And until then, please have a wonderful rest of your day. Stay safe. Okay, stay safe. Hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.